I'm much better now that the ladies are back from space.
What were they up there, 10 minutes?
Okay.
It was very profound. I don't know if you've seen Katy Perry talk about it, but she's basically a guru now.
Yeah. What were her findings? That's my question.
Well,
what
she
did
brought
she
a
learn?
daisy, which is super important. It shows you how quick the flight was. The dead daisy that's like snipped from its life source was still alive or still vibrant.
Yeah, and it's
look
always,
at her.
yeah.
Shout out Daisy.
Oh my God, you guys, look, we're seeing the moon. Guess what? We all see the moon just fine down here. Have you seen the moon rise? Great. To Blue Origin, because it's over the top. It's over the top what's happened with these women.
Katy Perry, Gayle King, and Lauren Sanchez blasted off into space in an historic all-female space flight as they rode this huge phallic instrument of Jeff Bezos's into the sky as a blatant Amazon commercial disguised as female empowerment. God, this is so dumb.
Now, so they go up there and they float for like 10 minutes.
At least.
And then they come down.
Let's not minimize this.
No, I know. It's a big deal.
Let's celebrate female astronauts.
And because they were united.
Katy Perry went up to the space yesterday and she spent no more than 4 minutes of intense pleasure up there. Came back and talked about how much in love she was with it, how amazing it all was. And she's talking as if she's Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin, you know, landing on the moon, first people planting a flag. She was in space for 4 minutes. She's got longer songs than that.
Katy Perry, in other words, had certainly set the bar high for herself. She was so insufferably stupid and ditzy before the flight that everybody wondered if she could come up with anything even dumber when she landed.
Now we have to witness, who is it, Katy Perry? I didn't even know she was still relevant.
It was flat but quiet. Like these profundities, Walter. Buckle up.
I have no doubt that it was a cool experience. It was not historic or significant in any way, but it was still, I'm sure, cool. More than cool, it must have been profound and quite moving. It's a shame then that it was wasted on a woman with the wisdom and intellectual depth of a newborn poodle.
Has shot a bunch of women tourists who are totally unqualified to be astronauts in a remotely controlled spaceship for 10 minutes into orbit. How insufferable, all the feminists aboard? How much do we not want this rocket to return to Earth?
Just so ridiculous the way some of the media were covering it, the way they were like self-congratulatory. They've gone next level.
Absolutely insane. I don't know if it's just woman cringe, Hollywood cringe, or elitist billionaire privilege cringe, but it's absolutely insane.
I had to come back. I mean, we're getting married. If I didn't come back, that would be a bummer for me.
5 women went up into space, right? Jeff Bezos, the man who paid for it all, sent his wife up. Which tells you something about their marriage, doesn't it? I think he was hoping she wouldn't come back.
We duplicated the trajectory of Alan Shepard's flight back in the day.
In case you didn't know, Alan Shepard is famous because he was the first American to go to space in 1961. So we don't celebrate the people who do it as on a tourist trip 60 years later. We celebrate the people who were the first to do it. Gayle doesn't want us to say that she took a ride, but that is in fact what she did. She took a ride on a remotely piloted craft. Anyone who denies my achievement is sexist.
Earth looked it was so quiet. It was just quiet.
And now we're supposed to celebrate her crossing new barriers for women, meaning boinking a billionaire and getting a free ticket to space for 11 minutes.
It was belittling to women. And
I'm still stuck on the fact that Gayle King actually used the word astronauts. You are there on a vanity project of Jeff Bezos and his fiance. They got in their special Oscar de la Renta designed suits, laid down in a capsule, and came back in 10 minutes, you guys.
They admired the universe, and what they were expecting was for us to admire the fact that they were rich enough and famous enough to have been granted this utterly vacuous experience from which they learned absolutely nothing.
Katy Perry's return from space should have been a triumphant moment, a celebration of women reaching new heights, both literally and figuratively. But instead of a celebratory anthem, what we got felt more like a Saturday Night Live sketch that forgot it was supposed to be funny. Her dramatic kiss to the earth, her wide-eyed musings about love, energy, and healing instantly became internet fuel. Perry had ridden a billionaire's rocket for 11 minutes, returning transformed, or so she wanted us to believe. The public, not buying it.
But the training, it all comes down to literally they learned how to buckle their seatbelts. And I asked my team to poll, like, what did they do during their 2 days? Their tasks, they spent the past 2 days practicing how to get into and out of the New Shepard capsule.
What could have been a meaningful moment about women in space quickly devolved into online mockery. The backlash wasn't about space travel itself. It was the tone. Self-important, tone-deaf, and soaked in performative narcissism, Perry's cosmic experience quickly became a meme goldmine. The internet had no mercy. Critics didn't just laugh, they cringed. And as the viral jokes about her exaggerated transformation spread, they hinted at something deeper, a growing cynicism towards celebrity-driven space missions, especially when the stars themselves didn't seem to grasp the difference between real achievement and high-priced theatrics. There was a time when spaceflight stood as the pinnacle of human ambition, a dangerous, grueling pursuit reserved for those who had trained, studied, and sacrificed. Space was sacred. It represented something bigger than any one person's ego. But now, it's Instagram theater. The Blue Origin all-female flight, pitched as a historic milestone, looked less like a scientific mission and more like a red carpet event with zero gravity. No engineers, no scientists, no researchers, just celebrities dressed in designer flight suits, armed with selfie sticks, and vague mantras about healing the world. What was supposed to be a symbol of female empowerment quickly revealed itself as a meticulously curated PR campaign. There was no training montage, no grueling preparation, just a brief orientation, a seatbelt click, and an influencer-worthy photo op. They weren't astronauts. They were glorified tourists with better lighting. And while the world once cheered real spacewalkers risking everything to advance human knowledge, this new breed of space pioneers seemed more interested in chasing viral moments than chasing the stars. Among the chaos, one moment stood out like a sore thumb: Gayle King's social media meltdown. After returning from the brief cosmic hop, Gayle furiously posted, "Stop calling it a ride. It's a journey, a powerful, inspiring journey." Except it wasn't. It was a ride, a pre-programmed, remotely operated 10-minute round trip with less control than a Disney monorail. Nobody flew the spacecraft. Nobody adjusted course mid-flight. They floated, smiled for cameras, and came home. Gayle's desperate insistence that it was something more only highlighted the glaring gap between the myth they were trying to sell and the reality everyone else could see. She wanted to be seen as a pioneer, a symbol of strength and achievement. But when your cosmic journey is a billionaire-funded jaunt that lasts less time than a lunch break, the narrative crumbles fast. The public wasn't buying the hero edit. They were busy making memes. As if the spectacle wasn't already teetering on the edge of absurdity, Oprah reportedly burst into tears watching Katy Perry and company float above the earth for 10 minutes. Not because humanity had achieved something extraordinary, not because a new frontier was conquered. No, she cried because her friends went on a billionaire's glorified amusement park ride. Hollywood's elite rushed to validate the trip as a feminist milestone, clapping each other on the back in a massive, self-congratulatory echo chamber. Meanwhile, the true heroes of space, the astronauts living on the ISS, fixing satellites, performing experiments that push human knowledge forward, were completely ignored. Instead of celebrating true achievement, we got Instagram captions about love, unity, and the healing power of zero gravity. It was less about progress and more about performance, a carefully staged emotional campaign designed to make the privileged look profound. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. When even other celebrities start roasting you, you know you've crossed a line. Olivia Wilde reposted a photo of Katy Perry kissing the ground, dripping with sarcasm. Amy Schumer, never one to miss an opportunity, joked that she too had been added to the flight last minute. While riding the subway, Martha Stewart threw in her own hilarious jab, sharing an old zero-gravity photo of herself with a wink, reminding everyone that floating around weightlessly isn't exactly rare. The message from inside the fame machine was clear. This wasn't a moment of solidarity or empowerment. It was high-budget cosplay, a billionaire-sponsored theme park experience dressed up in the language of social progress. They weren't astronauts. They weren't pioneers. They were influencers on a sponsored brand trip, only the brand was space. Girl power and the Instagram enlightenment. From the second the capsule floated into the stratosphere, the Instagram enlightenment began. Lauren Sanchez, holding a bouquet mid-flight, shouted, "Girl power," as though she were hosting a cosmic episode of The Bachelor. Gayle King, in full poetic mode, spoke of bringing a daisy into space to represent her daughter, wrapping it all in sweeping declarations about the energy of the cosmos. And Katy Perry, ever the performer, serenaded the capsule with a shaky rendition of What a Wonderful World, as if auditioning for a halftime show among the stars. It was less Apollo 11 and more Coachella, but with fewer musicians and more billionaires. This wasn't empowerment, this was performance art in a vacuum, literally and figuratively. Real empowerment isn't a hashtag or a flower-crowned moment above the Earth's atmosphere. It's grit, sacrifice, skill, and sweat. It's something earned, not staged. What we witnessed wasn't history being made. It was a billionaire-funded Instagram Live with a thin veneer of faux progress sprinkled on top, the internet's relentless roast. If Katy and crew hoped for adulation, what they got instead was a public roast of galactic proportions. Twitter erupted with memes almost before the capsule touched down. One viral post showed a side-by-side of the Blue Origin capsule and Disney World's Soarin' ride with the caption, "Same training, less ego." Another congratulated the crew for being the first influencers to visit the upper stratosphere and return without a single scientific discovery. Reddit went even harder. Users mocked the so-called training these celebrities underwent, joking that flight attendants log more hours in emergency drills than these would-be astronauts. TikTok creators stitched Gayle King's dreamy monologues, reenacting them with hairbrushes as microphones and bathrobes as spacesuits. Captioning it, "When your enlightenment only costs $1 million and a Jeff Bezos DM." The public wasn't moved. They were entertained, just not the way Katy and her crew intended. What even is an astronaut anymore? And here's the existential question nobody at Blue Origin wanted to answer. If everyone's an astronaut now, is anyone an astronaut at all? Once, the title meant surviving years of brutal training, mastering physics, engineering, and aeronautics. It meant strapping yourself to a volatile rocket, knowing full well you might never return. It meant exploration, sacrifice, and often death. Today, it means surviving a background check and remembering not to float into someone else's selfie mid-flight. These new astronauts weren't piloting anything. They weren't conducting experiments. They weren't even allowed to touch the controls. If Wi-Fi had cut out during the mission, the only real emergency would have been the inability to post a mid-air selfie. The word astronaut deserves better, and frankly, so do we. You paid for a theme park ride, not a legacy. Let's call this space trip what it really was, a luxury experience, not a legacy. The sleek branding, the heartfelt speeches, the orchestrated tears, it was all smoke and mirrors, a billion-dollar marketing campaign disguised as feminist history. This wasn't about shattering the glass ceiling, it was about cashing in on the image of shattering the glass ceiling. It was about Instagrammable moments, not groundbreaking moments. The average woman, the one working 2 jobs, raising a family, navigating a world still riddled with real barriers, wasn't uplifted by Katy Perry floating weightlessly while singing. She was reminded just how detached the elite have become. Privilege got a front row seat to the stars, while the rest of us watched from the ground, rolling our eyes. Final descent, from the cosmos to cringe. And as the capsule gently touched down, so too did reality. The teary press conferences, the overwrought Instagram posts, the breathless interviews about healing energy and transformative vibrations, it all collapsed under the weight of its own absurdity. They didn't find enlightenment. They didn't break barriers. They didn't rewrite history. They floated above Earth for 10 minutes and came back thinking they'd written the next chapter of human achievement. Instead, they became a cautionary tale, a living meme of just how far celebrity culture has drifted from real meaning. If the future of space travel looks like this, less 2001 A Space Odyssey and more Keeping Up with the Cosmonauts, then maybe the real pioneers are the ones still working in silence, in labs, in simulators, dreaming of reaching the stars for real. Because no matter how many hashtags you slap on it, a 10-minute selfie session at 300,000 feet isn't a revolution. It's just cringe. And the public? We're not buying it.